Okay, I'm just gonna hang out or hang around for a bit to see if anyone is going to go on and watch the live. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So, today was just one of those days that showed me flames. I said that I was going to do a live chat during my lunch break today to talk about seasonal affective disorder, but it was just one of those days where things don't go as you had planned. I didn't touch or do anything on my to-do list because my day just turned out to be just putting out fires the whole day, solving one crisis after the other. It was also a very difficult day emotionally for me because I had to dismiss one of my kids in the youth center for inappropriate behavior because he was on the last warning. Like, guys, my heart just broke. You know, when a child is begging you, I promise you I'm going to do the right thing, I'm going to behave, you'll never have any problems with me again until I finish my treatment, and you're just like, no, it's not gonna work because I've already given you so many chances, and he was on a final warning, so there was no way that I could let it slide. So yeah, it was just a busy day, but also emotionally very difficult because it's never easy making such decisions to send a child away, because you know that they need help, you know that they just need somebody to give them a second chance to believe in them. But when they've pushed boundaries, you just get to that point where you're like, I can't compromise anymore. But anyway, so yeah, I said that I was going to talk about seasonal affective disorder because when I woke up this morning, everyone was on some hello December, festive season has started. Apparently relationships ended last night at 23:59. So I don't know what you guys do after that and beyond, from midnight onwards. If you are not in relationships, or you put them on pause until January, I don't know, because I'm not in a relationship. But anyways, so on a more serious note, when I woke up this morning and I was going through WhatsApp stories of my friends, and just the vibe that everyone is in, December and the festive season, people are looking forward to finally getting that rest time, finally being able to just unwind and slow down a bit in preparation for Christmas and that period that we get to rest at the end of the year. I thought to myself, as much as there's so many people who are excited about the festive season, this is also a very difficult time for a lot of people, because the festive season, like I said in my update this morning, the jolly season, the season to be jolly, is not jolly for everyone, because the festive season for a lot of people is very difficult because some of them are far from family, far from home, far from loved ones. For other people, it's maybe their first Christmas without a significant other, without a loved one. So it also makes the period very difficult for them. We know that 2020 has really been a difficult year. We have seen so many people lose their loved ones. Personally, in my life, I've lost like 4 people: my cousin, my aunt, 2 of my friends, people that I was very close to, that I lost over this period or during the course of this year. So I know that a lot of people are grieving. I know that a lot of people are not in the right space emotionally. I know that a lot of people are really just struggling to come to terms with what the year has been and what it has brought about in their lives. So while we have people who are celebrating and who are looking forward to going home and spending Christmas with family, we also have, like I said, those people who are just now, it's like, what now? I must go home, and it's maybe my first Christmas without my mom, or my first Christmas without my dad, or the first Christmas since I lost my job, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford to buy kids new clothes, if I'm going to be able to afford groceries when I get home, will I even be able to go home? So yes, a lot of us will be spending time with family over the festive season, but there's also a ton of other people who are just going to be alone over this period. And that's why I always say, if you can invite a friend over, if you can do something for a neighbor over the festive period, please do that. Even if it's just sharing a meal with them, because there really are people who don't have the means, or who have the means but they far from family. So just to try and make them feel better, so that they don't have to spend this time alone, and they don't have to think about everything that's negative, or that's bad, or that's traumatic that's happened over the course of the year. If you just pop in and say hi, I just brought you a lunch, or just brought you dessert, or whatever the case may be, it really does go a long way in helping to cheer them up, and just affirming to them, that despite everything that's happened, you are not alone. There's people that care for you. There are people who support you and who are here for you. So what is seasonal affective disorder? Seasonal affective disorder is a mood disorder like depression, but with seasonal affective disorder, it becomes heightened during certain periods of the year. For other people, it's what we know as maybe winter blues, like when it's winter and you're like, do I really have to go to work? Do I have to wake up? I don't want to face the world. I just want to sleep and eat all day. That can be regarded as seasonal affective disorder. So what normally happens during certain periods in the year, whether it's with a season changing or with seasons like your festive season, a lot of people who are suffering from seasonal affective disorder go into this dip where the signs and symptoms of depression are just heightened in their life. So they'll find that they isolating, they are withdrawn, they have a depressed mood, they lose interest in doing things that they commonly would enjoy or normally would enjoy, and just lose interest in those things. They would either sleep a lot or struggle to sleep. They're restless, agitated. There's just a sense of hopelessness that they feel, being worthless, especially if you think about people like that lost their jobs during the course of the year. Now you're going home and everybody's looking to you to buy this and that and the other, but you don't have the financial means. That can contribute towards you feeling like, oh, my worth, because I have nothing to bring to the table. I have nothing to offer to my family. With people who generally have your depression, your bipolar, and who have been diagnosed with these mental health disorders, and they're already exhibiting those negative symptoms that we know about when we talk about depression, for instance. With seasonal affective disorder, the symptoms that they normally have just get worse. And then you also find people who throughout the year, your mental health is what it's supposed to be. I don't want to say that it's normal, because normal is relative, but their mental health is generally what it's supposed to be. But then you would get certain periods in the year where it's like, it's not going so well and I'm not feeling so good. And in psychology, they also refer to seasonal affective disorder as anniversary reaction, which means that you would find that during certain times in the year, you get those periods where you feel really down. I know for me personally, November, the month of November, is not a good month for me. It's a bittersweet month because it's the month in which I was born, in which my daughter was born, but it's also better in the sense that it's also the same month in which I lost my mother. So whenever, like every year, guys, even if I try to get myself out of this funk and not think about it and not allow those depressive symptoms to come about, November always somehow seems to be a difficult month for me. So do I have seasonal affective disorder? I don't know, but all I know is that during that time of the year, I am not really myself, and it becomes very difficult for me to enjoy things that I would normally enjoy. And I also then experience a lot of those depressive or depression symptoms, to the point where for years since my mom's passing, I don't really celebrate my birthday. I don't make a big deal out of my birthday because my birthday is on the 19th of November and my mother passed away on the 17th of November. So the one thing that always comes to my mind during that time of the year is the fact that the 19th of November, on the year that she passed, we had her memorial service. So that's like the one memory that just sticks out. And unfortunately, it just clouds the fact that, hey, Rita, but it's also the day that you were born. It's a happy day. It's a joyous day. You need to celebrate it and be thankful for that day. I am thankful, but it's just difficult for me to celebrate my birthday. I don't know if I'm making sense. So with a lot of people, that is what seasonal affective disorder would look or feel like, where there's certain times during the year where you are not yourself. You are not performing at your peak, and you experience a lot of the depression symptoms that I mentioned earlier on. For some people, it would be like Mother's Day, where even though maybe your mom didn't necessarily pass on during the month of May, but just around that time when it's going to be Mother's Day, you start to feel the depression, you start to feel the blues, because you know that, hey, everybody's going to be posting on social media, acknowledging their mothers, and you can't do that because she's no longer with you. So different people would experience seasonal affective disorder for different reasons, depending on what that time in their life signifies, what memories it triggers, what traumatic event they may have gone through during that time. It's not only related to loss, but it could be something like maybe during September of a specific year, you experience a very traumatic accident, and maybe you were hospitalized for a week or whatever, and every year during that month you then experience the symptoms of depression, because then it reminds you of that time in your life. It reminds you of that time when you had the accident. And for a lot of people also, if you think about it, next year is going to be even more difficult, because during certain periods in the year, they're going to remember that, hey, March was actually the time when South Africa went into the lockdown, or March was actually the month in which I lost my job, or I took a salary cut, or I went through something that I'm still struggling to come to terms with. Seasonal affective disorder does also not mean that you are depressed or you have major depression, because as soon as that specific period has passed in your life, you are able to pick up and go. Like I said, I gave an example of me during the month of November, that November is a difficult month for me because it's the anniversary of my mother's passing. And the days leading up to that, I would be in this depressive mode or depressive mood, and I would not really have like less to do, a lot of things. I would have low energy. But as soon as the day has passed, I'm like, yeah, then I'm back in the game. So it's also something that we could say it's sort of like a phase that doesn't really last forever. It's just there during a specific season or time in your life, and it continues to come back during the same period every year. So if the festive season is a difficult time for you for whatever reason, and you experience those symptoms of depression, it means that every year, maybe when around Christmas time, you don't really feel cheerful, you don't really want to be around family, you don't really want to do things that people normally do around that time. But then January, the rest of the year, you are fine, you are able to function, your mental health is what it's supposed to be. And then when that season or that phase comes, then you go into that dip. So that is in a nutshell what seasonal affective disorder is. It's a sort or a type of depression. Like I said, it's a mood disorder. So it means that, the symptoms that we know or that we speak of when we refer to depression will be heightened during that period in your life, for whatever reason, because of something that you've gone through or that you have experienced during that time. And also the other thing that is interesting to note, I don't know if you also would find it interesting, but that is interesting for me, is that research has shown that people with bipolar and people with depression actually function on two calendars. The one calendar is the one that we all know, that keeps track of dates, where we know today is the 1st of December, tomorrow is the 2nd of December. So that is the calendar that we all use. But then people with depression and bipolar also have an emotional calendar, where it's not only the date that you are cognizant of or that you are aware of, but it's also like, it's the anniversary of my mom's passing, or it's the anniversary of my dad's passing, or it's the anniversary of my death. So of my divorce, sorry. So every time that you are close to that time in your life that triggers a painful memory, then you go into what we call the blues, and then you experience that seasonal affective disorder. Yes, there's things that you can do to sort of take care of yourself, but also to ensure that when that phase or that season in your life comes, that you're not experiencing it as severely as you would have if you didn't know or if you didn't see it coming. So the one thing that you can do is always be aware of what date, what time of the year we are on. If you know that November is not a good time for you, for instance, or December is not a good time for you, then it's something that you are aware of in advance, and you are able to sort of prepare yourself emotionally to say, ish, you know, festive season is coming, people are going to see their families, I'm going to be here all alone, or Mother's Day is coming up, or Father's Day is coming up, and I'm going to be here. I'm not going to be able to post my parent on social media and celebrate with everyone else. So long before the dip actually comes, and long before you actually experience that dip, you are able to prepare yourself and say, hey, Rita, that wave is about to hit you. Because that's the one thing also that I always say as far as grief is concerned, that grief comes in waves, you know. And sometimes, you know, like when you're at the beach, sometimes it's like a smaller wave and you are still able to run in the water and laugh about it and enjoy. So sometimes when the date of that painful memory comes, you are able to sit there and say, yo, look, I've come so far, you know. I thought that that thing would break me or be the end of me, but here I am, I'm still going strong and I'm still doing this life thing. You know, that's like that small wave. And then other times, unfortunately, the grief comes like a huge wave that just sort of consumes you and throws you off balance. And those would be the times that you then probably experience the seasonal affective disorder, like on a severe level, where because of the anniversary of whatever traumatic experience you've experienced, you are really not able to function as you should or as you normally would be able to function. So the one thing that you can do for yourself is to be aware, you know, that this time in my life, whether it's the festive season, whether it's Mother's Day, whether it's January, you would know what triggers you, but you need to be aware in advance of this thing is coming my way. So I need to prepare myself. I need to do what I can do in order for me to take care of my mental well-being. Sorry. Sorry guys, the comments are distracting me because as I'm speaking I'm seeing who's watching and then I become distracted, but apologies for that. So yeah, being aware that this time, this season is coming, it's about to hit you, it's about to brace you with its presence, can also help you not to experience the symptoms as so severe because you knew and you were better prepared for it. Then you start doing things that help you to promote your mental well-being, like exercise, eating right, getting enough rest. Speak to someone about it, you know. And a lot of people always frown on, I don't know, people speaking about their feelings and stuff on social media. But let me tell you guys that earlier on in the year when I was doing research on grief, because it's one of the things that I chose to major in when I enrolled for my master's, grief, because obviously for personal reasons, but also because grief is like one of those things that we can't run away from in life. We are bound to experience it at one or other points in our lives. But I actually learned that there are psychologists, social workers, mental health professionals who work with people that actually promote things like starting a blog online where you can post pictures and post memories of you and the loved one to help you process that grief. So sometimes when people go on social media and then they're sharing with us that, yo, you know, missing my mom, missing my dad, missing this and that, and we see them as sad, we feel like, but why are you advertising your business on social media? Because nobody really cares about that. Okay, maybe probably people don't care, but it's not about people caring, but it's about you as a person finding an outlet that helps you to release pent up emotions. Because also, if you are just gonna go on about your business, about your day, pretending not to be affected by the things that affect you, that's also not good for your mental well-being. So if you are someone like me, for instance, where you really love writing, you really do love and enjoy social media and interacting with other people, then posting about your feelings on the anniversary of traumatic events and sharing your experience and talking about your experience is actually a good way to help you heal, you know, to help you process what has happened, to help you to move on to the next level or to the next phase of your life. And also the other thing is that sometimes when people are continuously speaking about a certain event, we might start to feel like, yo, she's starting, it's again November, she's going to speak about her mother, she's going to tell us about how much she's missing her mother and things like that. Okay, yeah, if it bothers you, just look the other way, you know, and keep it moving and scroll down to other things that you find more interesting. But it's actually something that is very helpful towards the healing process. The more that you talk about an experience, about something painful that's happened in your life, the more that you are able to process what has happened, but it also helps you in finally getting to a place of healing, if I can call it that. But also, you know, guys, healing is a messy process. There's no one size fits all approach for everyone. For other people, they're doing quite well working on themselves, addressing what it is that they need to address in silence, not sharing with anyone, or at least not sharing publicly. But if you are one of those people where you feel like, nah, if I log on and I type something about the accident that happened, I type something about the rape that I went through, I type something about the divorce or the separation, if you feel that it helps you, please do that, you know, because if I feel as a person that I don't relate to your content, then I should just keep it moving. But we should never, you know, put ourselves in a position where we feel like we are able to dictate to other people what they should post, when they should post it. But of course, I think I spoke about this like a few weeks ago to say that you also don't need to give people like a blow-by-blow detail of an experience that you are going through. So if you are struggling with a divorce, if you are struggling with the fact that you were sexually assaulted, you also need to get help like beyond social media. You know, we're just gonna comment there and say, hey, sorry, you're going through this, I'm here for you, like all these fancy and wonderful things that people say. But is it really enough to help you, you know, to keep you going? Is it really enough to help you, put you on that path of healing, you know? So yes, share with people publicly if you want to, but don't let that be the only thing that you do, especially when you notice that you are really struggling. Then you need to rope in some professional help. Then you need to do some work beyond just posting on social media and sharing with people on a public platform about what it is that you are going through. But also being aware, this thing is probably going to happen to you a lot of times every year for many years. And I'm saying this because, you know, it's been, this year was what, 12 years, this year was 12 years since my mom passed away. And last year, if I remember correctly, on the anniversary of her passing, I was like, yay, you know, a guy, where Namugele, I miss you so much, Mara, why did you do this to me? But hey, life goes on. I'm pushing, I'm doing this thing, I'm raising your granddaughter, and we are doing well. Like, I was in a good space on the anniversary of her passing. And then this year, woo, flames, fire. And I think, I was talking to my colleague on that day, and I was saying to her, I think the fact that there were so many losses that I also experienced this year alone, it also just made things worse for me on the anniversary of her passing, because then it was like, yo, on top of all these people that I lost, it's you also that you are gone. And maybe if you were here, you would be able to like just say a few kind words to motivate me or to encourage me or whatever. So even though you experience seasonal affective disorder, even though you have these phases or these seasons in your life where you know that you are going to experience symptoms of depression and you are going to not be blessed to do a lot of the things that you used to enjoy, it's not always going to hit with the same intensity every year. So this year you might be struggling on Mother's Day, and then next year on Mother's Day, you're like, oh, okay, Mother's Day, you're still able to log on, see people celebrating their mothers, and it doesn't really affect you in a negative way. Like, you're able to keep it moving, but you're still aware of this thing. You're still aware of this season in your life. So the one thing I said, just be aware, like prepare yourself in advance. Don't wait. And for other people, and I know I'm saying prepare, but it also sort of contradicts how the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder would also play themselves out, because sometimes it's like you don't know, you are just not feeling like yourself, né? And you experience the low mood, the loss of interest, you are sleeping too much or not sleeping, or you are eating too much or not eating at all, but you can't pinpoint that this is the reason why I feel the way that I feel, né? And especially when like there's a lot of years that have passed since the traumatic event happened, then you'll find maybe somebody in your life that's very close to you that has a mental note of these dates will tell you, oh Rita, askisi, I know November signifies this and that for you, and then you're able to say, oh, now that explains why I've been feeling the way that I've been feeling. So not everyone that experiences seasonal affective disorder is able to pinpoint that this is the season, in this season this is what had happened, and this is why I feel the way that I feel. Sometimes it will be the people that are in your life, the people in your close circle, that will remind you of why you are not particularly feeling like yourself in that moment. But rest assured, it's not something that makes you incapable of functioning optimally. It's not something that makes you incapable of doing what you are supposed to do, even when you are within that season, even when you are experiencing those depressive symptoms or the depressed mood. But remember, I said that for people who have already been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, people who have already been diagnosed with bipolar, if they, on top of the MDD or on top of the bipolar, experience seasonal affective disorder, then it's like, yeah, then the low just feels like it's the lowest of lows that you have experienced. It's because on top of everything else that you are already dealing with that has made you depressed, or that led to the diagnosis of the bipolar or the major depression, now you are also dealing with being triggered because it's a certain time in your life that takes you back to a painful memory, something that you don't want to think about every day, or something that you maybe repressed, because that could also be the other reason why you could experience seasonal affective disorder but not be aware. It's because, when we deal with painful experiences, not everyone has the know-how to deal with these things. So a lot of people also repress those memories. They just put them there somewhere, like at the back of your head, where you don't think about this thing, and you don't want to think about it because it's painful, because you have not really processed that thing. But because the memory is repressed, it does not mean that when that time hits or when that season comes in your life, you're not going to experience those negative symptoms of the depression. They're still going to be there, but you might just find it difficult to then pinpoint that this is the reason why I feel the way that I feel, So it also sort of makes it difficult for you to prepare yourself and to do what you need to do in order to address the situation or the circumstances, or to also do things that promote your mental well-being when you are in that period. So I think I've said a lot. I think I've said a lot, but I hope that you guys are able to understand, or that you are able to get something from this explanation regarding what seasonal affective disorder is. It's a mood disorder. It resembles your depression or major depression, because you experience all those symptoms that somebody with depression would experience, but with you it's that how do you also prepare others around you? Oh, okay. Noted, Khomoza. I'm going to come back to your question. So yeah, Khomoza says, you said it's important to be aware of the event so that you can prepare yourself. How do you also prepare others around you? You are not going to put that on yourself to now let the world know, November is coming. Remember, guys, November, I'm not in a good space, so just give me space or whatever. But I think with the people closest to you, always be open about your feelings, or always be open about what it is that you are going through, because it's very difficult. And I know it's easier said than done, because a lot of times when people are experiencing a depression, whether it's major depressive disorder or whether it's depression as a phase, we tend to isolate ourselves and withdraw from people. So also having open communication with people, it's not something that we prioritize at that time, because maybe you just feel like if you are like me, you just feel like when you go through something, I just want to be alone. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to explain anything to anyone. But if you can have an honest conversation with the people around you, let them know that, a few years ago or last year or whatever the case may be, I went through this and that in my life, and it's something that I'm still trying to process. It's something that I'm still trying to deal with. So I have also picked up that during certain times in my life, or during certain times in the year, when the anniversary of that event comes up, I tend not to be myself. And if you do pick that up, please just maybe have a conversation with me to say, I'm noticing this about you, or give me space and just allow me to grieve and mourn in a way that is comfortable for me, but don't internalize it. Don't take it personal, because this is always the difficult thing with the people around us, is that they internalize things. I start thinking I did something wrong, or Rita has a problem with me. Until that time, Rita is just dealing with her own stuff, So to avoid conflict, misunderstandings, and people feeling like they don't know how to approach you, how to support you, tell them what it is that you need from them, because we don't need the same things when we are going through difficult things. Like I said, if you like me, you want to be alone. Somebody else would want people to gather around them to give them support if they're going through a difficult time. So just have an honest conversation and let people know this is what you're going through. You are triggered and you are just experiencing like these symptoms of depression, or you are not particularly yourself, and let them know how they can support you. Yeah. Lerato says, looking back, August was hard, but I couldn't put a finger on why. Now I remember it was 12th-month anniversary of my divorce. That is exactly what I have been explaining. That sometimes, especially because you're like, hey, especially things like divorce, I think we are more gentle with people who lost a loved one, and we feel that those people have a right to grieve, because death is the only thing that brings on grief. But that's not the case. Things like losing your job can bring about grief. Things like going through a divorce can bring about grief. But also then there's that expectation from society that I can't still be talking 12 months into it. I'm still referring to my divorce, and I'm still talking about how it made me feel or how it makes me feel. Because I don't want people to think that I haven't moved on. I don't want people to think that I'm still in love with this person, but I want them back, or whatever the case may be. So then we end up repressing the emotions that come with a specific event. But then, like you said, then you start experiencing yourself as not being yourself, as being down, but not being able to pinpoint why it was like that. But when you actually sit and reflect and think about it, then you're able to, like you just did now, Lerato, you're able to pinpoint that, oh, August, the 12-month anniversary, it was actually a year. And talking about 12 months, the first month of any traumatic event happening is actually the hardest to go through. If you look at a period of 12 months, now if you lose a loved one to death, 12 months means that your birthday must still pass, your first birthday without them, their first birthday without them being there, first birthday of the grandchildren or the children, or things like that, man, that are continuously going to take you back to that loss that you experience. And the other thing that's also interesting with the 1 year mark is that in the beginning, when people grieve a certain loss, they will say 1 year since the passing of my mom, 2 months since the passing of my mom, 3 months since the passing, or 6 months since my divorce, or whatever. But then from 12 months on, which is a year, then people don't start or don't count down every other year, but they will count down annually. They will say 1 year since my divorce, 2 years since my divorce. But before you got to that point, you were counting it monthly. That also sort of shows the progress that you are making in terms of dealing with the situation, and also picking up the pieces and moving on. But like I said, it's not the same with everyone. And the other thing is that when we experience something that is traumatic, whether it be divorce or death or a loss of a job or being raped or whatever, we think that grief means that I must go through the process and get to a point of acceptance. And it doesn't work like that, guys. You don't get to a point of total acceptance. You know, you might be 3 years divorced, and then one day something small, insignificant, meaningless happens that triggers you, that makes you remember, hey, passion, divorce, Joe, and then you are sad like for the rest of the day, or you are sad for that week, or you are sad for that month. So that is also what makes the healing process such a messy thing, is that we never really get to a point where we say that it's been 12 years, it's been 12 months, it's been 3 years, and I have come to a point where I have totally accepted the loss and I'm moving on with my life. Because there's always things that trigger that painful memory. You know, there's always things that somehow take you back to that thing. And just when you think that you are healed, something hits you, and then you find that but okay, I'm not where I was. And if you find yourself in that position, it's okay. It's okay. It does not mean that you are struggling. It does not mean that there's something wrong with you. It does not mean that you are finding it difficult to move on with your life, or you're still holding on to the past, or whatever other people may think. It's okay when you are triggered. It's okay to admit that today we are bad. You know, it's not going as well as I thought that it was going. And I said, I think it was last week sometime when I was updating on grief, I said it's okay for us to acknowledge when we are having a bad day. It's okay to acknowledge when we are having a bad week. But just because in that moment I acknowledge that I'm not myself and I'm experiencing the symptoms of depression, does not mean that I'm not going to stand up next week and be myself again. You know, so when August comes and you are feeling down, it's okay to be in that space and mourn what you have lost. It does not mean that you want your ex-husband back. It doesn't mean that you still dream about a happily ever after. But, you know, we don't go into these situations thinking that one day there's going to be a divorce, or thinking that one day this person is no longer going to be a part of my life. And if now and again you find that you are sad, and now and again you find that you are not in a good space, allow yourself to be there. And one day, probably a few years from now, August is going to come and you're not even going to think about it. It's not going to faze you. It's not going to trigger you. It's not going to take you back. So until then, you know what I always say, it's okay not to be okay. So yeah. Mzi is asking, how do you deal with someone? Yo, I missed the question. How do I deal with someone who has this seasonal disorder? Someone who is moody. Being moody and having seasonal affective disorder is not the same thing. I can be moody, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have seasonal affective disorder. Every now and again throughout the year, irrespective of whether there's it's the anniversary of a traumatic event or a painful experience or whatever, like they can just wake up tomorrow. Because not anything that triggered them, you know, that is a moody person. They don't really need a specific reason to be moody. But with seasonal affective disorder, like I said, there is something that triggers, you know, that depression. There is something that triggers that person being in that dip or experiencing that low mood. And I can't really say this is how you would deal with a person like that. Like I said to Homoto, you know, it's about open communication. It's about being honest about where we are, the emotional space that we are in. It's about allowing ourselves to be vulnerable around the people that we love, around the people that we trust, so that we can let them know that if I am like this, please give me space. Or if I am like this, bring me ice cream or KFC, or like just love on me, you know. Even if I act like I don't need the love. And this is also the other thing, that sometimes when you going through things, we might act like I don't need anyone and I don't care about anyone. But you know, in actual fact, it's actually during those times that people actually need people to say, Rita, I'm outside Bula, we're gonna go have drinks or whatever the case may be. So it would differ from person to person. I think if you suspect that somebody has seasonal affective disorder and you are wondering, how do I support you as a friend, how do I support you as a partner, have that honest conversation with them to ask them what it is that they need from you when they are going through that season in their life. So yeah, I was busy saying new me, new life. So now saying ouch, Ichu would make me feel like a hypocrite, and I don't know what I want, so I must have suppressed it. Thank you for this. Definitely, because remember what I said, that we sometimes, without even being aware, we sort of pressurize ourselves to play into the expectations of society, of saying that you can't still be talking about your divorce after a year, because then it means that you haven't moved on, which is not really the case. Remember, I said that you don't get married thinking that it's going to end. You don't get married thinking that you're going to go through a divorce. And if now and again you find that you are triggered, it does not take away the fact that it's still a new me, new life, new chapter, and I'm embracing it. But now and again, the pain will come. Something will come that triggers you to that, you know, that experience, something that has happened with your life. But when you are there, acknowledge it, sit with that pain, sit with that grief, sit with the sadness, but then Emma girl, Emma we does and say, I'm keeping it moving. So people who don't understand would maybe think that yes, you are being a hypocrite, but it's got nothing to do with that. It's the same as people thinking, but Rita was okay last month, why this month Allah about that thing? I might have thought that I was okay, and then something happened that triggered me and took me back to that experience. Does not mean that there's something wrong with me. It makes me human, and it's human to acknowledge that you are not in a good space. It's human to acknowledge that you are not always going to perform, function at your peak. It does not make you any less of a person or any less strong than somebody that does not talk about things when they go through them, or somebody that seems to have their life in order. Because yeah, you know, and social media also doesn't really help, because out here we are all flourishing and fleeking and we've got our shit together, but that's not always a true reflection of what is happening behind closed doors. So yes guys, I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you got something out of it. Thank you so much for watching. And again, I apologize that I was not able to do this during my lunch break. Like I said, life happened, saw flames, but yeah, I'm glad that I was able to do it. Better late than never. So yeah, enjoy your evening and please keep safe. Bye guys.